would like to call the meeting to order on the special call meeting for the budget. Madam Clerk, would you do the honors of the roll call, please?
Good morning. Roll call for special call meeting for the third budget hearing. Today, September 15th. Councilmember Rao.
Present.
Councilmember Gomes.
Present.
Councilmember Willis.
Present.
Councilmember Gilliard. Councilmember Gilliard. Councilmember Reeves.
Count report.
Councilmember Khalid.
Present.
Councilmember Baker.
Present.
Also present is Mayor Edwards, Mr. Donald, City Manager, Ms. Walker, City Attorney. You have a quorum.
Would you call the agenda item, please?
The agenda item for today is a public hearing, third reading of proposed FY20 budget, an ordinance to adopt the fiscal year 2021 budget for each fund for the city of South Fulton, appropriating the amounts showing in each fund as expenditures, expenses, adopting the several items of revenue anticipation, prohibiting expenditures or expenses from exceeding the actual fund in the amount of $112,142,138.
Okay. You have any in the public hearing, ma'am?
Yes, I do. I have a total of 8.
Okay, go right ahead.
First, they're all from District 4. The first one is Sheila Mance at 755 Hall Road. As a resident of Hall Road, I do not want Hall Road paved as proposed. We invested in this area, which is zoned agriculture, because it's a rural and we want it to stay that way. There are no parks in the area, and residents and nearby neighbors use Hall Road as a safe place for walking dogs, horseback riding, and fitness regimens. We do not want our sanctuary destroyed. We feel that this is a ploy by the developers of the unwanted warehouses and apartments at Camilton Fairburn Highway and Hall and the new development at Jones and Hall to ease the congestion of traffic that they have created. We do not want to sacrifice our peaceful environment to become the cut-through road for thousands of warehouse workers, parents, and residents of surrounding areas. We feel that the impact of the increased traffic is not prudent use of the property owner's funds and is dangerous to the health, safety, and well-being of the property residents by decreasing privacy, increasing crime, and opening us up to dangerous conditions with speeding cars on a narrow street. We have many hidden driveways, and this increased traffic would be detrimental. What we do want is, 1, the street paved only to 7792 Hall to prevent the excess amount of dust of these residents whose houses sit close to the street. The dust is being generated for lack of wetting the street properly as promised. 2 resident-only signs, one at Ridge Road entrance and one immediately past Langston Hughes High School. 3 no through traffic signs located in the same places as item number 2. 3 cameras to monitor road for dumpers and litters located in the same places as the signs. Previous signs, a walking path on one side of the road. 5 prevention of Greystone Spring deadly chemicals that impact our well systems, pets, livestock, vegetation, and killing all the greenery, as well as creating an unsightly street view to our once beautiful road. We have reported this repeatedly with no action taken on behalf. 5 beautification and restoration of greenery destroyed by Greystone. 6 no school buses allowed. Several residents have almost been hit by them speeding down the road. Comment number 2, Jennifer Henderson. I oppose the paving of Hall Road. We own quite a large section of road frontage on the unsaved section. Our business and quality of life will be negatively affected by amount of traffic that will inevitably be utilizing the road. Comment number 3, Vincent Jordan, 7655 Hall Road. The majority of the residents on Hall Road strongly disagrees with paying the road. 4, Robert Hubert, 755 Hall Road. I am not in favor of spending funds to pave Hall Road. I hope the funds could be used for monitoring our youth and or providing jobs. We believe that paving the road would bring much unwanted traffic, crime, and infringe upon the peace and quietness we enjoy now. Also, we enjoy being able to walk on the street without having to worry about traffic. There are also many hidden driveways on the road. For you, your consideration, and the great job you are doing for the city. God bless you and lead you. Number 5, Rodney Hadley, 7790 Hall Road. Hall Road was not designed to handle the traffic it currently receives, mainly due to the 3 schools they have been recently developed. A large portion of the road was left unpaved, which has left several residents with an unwanted environmental hazard, dust, that is a health concern and visual impairment for drivers and pediatricians. It has been a struggle over the past few years to have the road treated for dust and is far too infrequent. I have been complaining regularly over the past few years, and I will continue to elevate the complaints until something is done. Channel 2 News have come out to investigate and report on the conditions this year before anyone would treat it for dust. The amount of traffic the road receives is not conducive for a gravel road and directly produces a hazard for local residents, pediatricians, and drivers. Another major concern for residents on Hall Road is the amount of traffic produced if the road is paved. There are a few options. 1, if the road is paved, completely speed bumps and signs can be placed to control traffic. 2, an additional quarter mile can be paved to include the residents facing the dirt road in combination with the signage. The additional paving versus paving the entire road is significantly cost efficient. Either way, something has to be done to improve the situation before it gets worse, and we are forced to. District 4 has not received any quality developments, including sewer, water, and broadband. This is a necessity and be treated with the priority it deserves. This is the responsibility of the city of South Fulton, and it has been passed off for too long. Number 6, Geraldine Boyd, 7790 Hall Road. The condition of Hall Road is unbearable. Dust from traffic, school buses in particular, produces so much dust that you cannot be outside for the majority of the day. The infrastructure must improve in this area with the city. This is an extreme case of negligence for allowing the situation to get as bad as it is. And it appears that no one cares because the news had to come out before anything was done. And several letters and phone calls have been and will continue to be made. I have heard of an option to pave an additional quarter or so of the road to protect residents opposed to paving the entire road, which I am in harmony with, but something must be done. I hope that our concerns do not fall on deaf ears, and council and our mayor have our best interests in mind. Thank you, City of South Fulton, District 4 residents concerned about the dust hazard on Hall Road. Number 7, Randall Hadley, 7790 Hall Road. Let me see. Okay, so he submitted 2. This one says, Hall Road environmental dust hazard due to traffic on dirt road. I understand that some residents on Hall Road do not agree with the continued paving of Hall Road because the unwanted traffic it will bring to our community. I agree, however, the development of the schools on Hall Road have already changed that, and not all of the residents experience the dust as much as others do to the setback of their individual homes. I have forwarded several pictures and videos demonstrating the severity of the situation of the city to the city council and public works. I have 5 children who would love to play outside in our yard and enjoy the natural scenery of our beautiful district and city, free of the health hazard associated with dust inhalation. But we cannot. I do believe a happy medium can be attained with minimal effort and within budget by partially paving sensitive areas along Hall Road as described in the petition submitted by residents. However, health trumps safety every time, and doing nothing is no longer an option. Due to heavy use of school buses scheduled, dust treatments alone have not worked and are reactionary at best. I am more than happy to provide further assistance and input. Thank you for your assistance with correcting the dust hazard on Hall Road. Number 8 is from Gloria Swift at 7765 Hall Road. As a resident and property owner of Hall Road in Fairburn, Georgia, I am concerned about the manner in which the proposal to pave our road did not include written notification to the residents and include us in this decision-making process. Perhaps written protocol is no longer a means by which you operate these days. Although we are smaller in number, I do hope that you are concerned about what we think, since your decision affects our livelihood. My husband and I have lived in this community for 19 years, and in recent years, our small community has been through a number of changes, 3 schools and numerous warehouses and traffic congestion. Some of you may see these changes as progress, while some of us see our livelihood inconvenienced and threatened. We do not want Hall Road paved as proposed. We invested in this area, which is zoned agriculture, because it is a rural, and we want it to stay that way. There are no parks in the area, and residents in nearby neighborhoods use Hall Road as a safe place for walking dogs, horseback riding, and fitness regimes. We do not want our sanctuary destroyed. We feel that this is a ploy by the developers of the unwanted warehouses, apartments at Campbellton Fairburn Highway and Hall Road, and the new development at Jones and Hall to ease the congestion of traffic that they have created. However, paving this road is not a remedy for the residents of our community. It will fuel the congestion we already experience. In addition, we have 3 schools that operate on our street that adds to the traffic flow. While most schools are closed because of COVID-19, they will reopen in a few short months, and traffic congestion will be paramount. When school buses speed up and down this road, they sound like a train, as several buses use this route to drop off and pick up children for school mornings, afternoons, and during sporting events, such as nightly football games at Langston High School. We do not want to sacrifice the remaining peaceful environment we have left to become the cut-through road for thousands of warehouse workers, parents, schools, and residents of surrounding areas. We feel that the impact of the increased traffic is not a prudent use of property owners' funds, and is dangerous to the health, safety, and well-being of the property residents by decreasing privacy, increasing crime, and opening us up to dangerous conditions with speeding cars on narrow streets. Accidents have been documented for speeders who have traveled our road. So we, the homeowners and the residents, are letting our voices be heard. Not now and not ever do we want our road paved. We, the people, want to decree to the City of South Fulton City Council, Mayor William Edwards, and their developers that we do not want this proposed street paving. We want our street to remain peaceful and serene. There has to be another remedy. What do we want? As mentioned by some of our residents, A, the street paved only to 7790 to prevent the excess amount of dust to said residents that is being generated for lack of wetting the street properly. 2 resident-only signs, one at Ridge Road entrance and one immediately past Langston Hughes High School. 3, cameras to monitor road for dumpers and litters located in the same place. 4, a walking path on one side of the road. 5, bumpers. 6, prevention of greystone spraying deadly chemicals that impact our well systems, pets, livestock, vegetation, and killing all the greenery and creating an unsightly street view to our once beautiful road. 6, properties taken for the paving of this road must be shared equally by all residents on both sides of the road and not from 2 or 3 residents. 7, written communication with our elected officials with the residents affected by this decision to pave our road. 8, we expect our local officials to operate completely above board and not sneak this proposal in during a special call meeting whereby residents are not informed or kept informed of incidents concerning us. The bridge on Hall Road is not suitable to hold the increased traffic that paving the road will cause. The bridge on Hall Road has been known to crack and be unusable, stopping the flow of traffic on both sides of the road. This means school buses, large trucks, and no one else will be able to use it. To my knowledge, the bridge has been repaired twice. The last time it was cracked, it took about 4 or 5 months for it to be repaired. That may be because we are some in number, and small numbers do not seem to weigh much in the political arena. At this moment, there is a crack in the road that goes across the bridge. I do not know how long it will take for it to be completely usable at this present usage. No doubt, extra usage or more traffic, especially large trucks, is likely to promote more wear and tear on this bridge. Therefore, please take this information into consideration as you think about paving our road. Mayor and Council, that ends the public comments.
Okay, I will close the public hearing. Madam Clerk?
I think the city manager has some comments.
Okay, city manager, go right ahead.
I have some too.
If we're gonna, let me do this. Since we're gonna get in the comments again, will someone make a motion to relax the rules?
I'll make a motion that we relax the rules.
Is there a second?
Wait a minute.
It's been second. Properly moved to second that we relax the rules. In discussion, I think I heard from Ms. Rao.
Yes.
Maybe I did not. Okay, all those in favor, Madam Clerk?
Councilmember Rao,
Yes.
Councilmember Gumbs,
Yes.
Councilmember Willis,
Yes.
Councilmember Gilliard,
Yes.
Councilmember Reeves,
Aye.
Councilmember Khalid,
Yes.
Councilmember Baker.
Aye.
Motion passes. Relax the
Okay,
rules.
at this time, let me hear from the city manager.
Yeah, and initially I was gonna just go into the unfunded items for the budget, but specifically for Hall Road, I received a forward from Ms. Willis, I believe this morning maybe, and so I'm responding to it actually now, but it'd probably be good for the public. So first, I think it's awesome public engagement to hear exactly what our residents want, although it's likely a little early in the process, which is a good thing because it helps us shape how we respond. So the process is really a 4-part process. The first, and Mr. Valenzuela is on the line if anyone needs some additional insights, but first you have a concept, which is the part that is currently underway. And so the concept is put in place so that you provide the residents basically a starting point and you're able to assign funding to the proposed project. In this example, the paving of the roads. Part 2 is actually getting the feedback on that concept before you spend any money on the real design. And so a public engagement process that will have the presentation of, let's say, the draft paved road or whatnot, where the residents would be able to kind of respond and actually give us this insight that they're providing ahead of time. So this is really good that they're doing so, because they would be able to decide and have input. Would they want a full pavement of the road, Would they like certain portions of it paved, or would they like intermittent paving, gravel, or whatever? You know, gravel is a bad example because in this instance, I don't think it's approved to be able to do gravel, but that's kind of the example and process. From there, phase 3, you actually take their input and go out and get an official design, and you bring that back for comment to the residents again prior to actually implementing the, in this instance, paving of the road or whatever is determined or decided on collaboratively by the residents and the council. And so that's just the insight that I would have on where we are in the process. So I think what they have seen, and I didn't know that I don't think staff has actually shared it publicly yet. So I'm not certain how it would be distributed, but we are only at the concept portion, and we have not actually fully brought it back to the community. And so I think at that time, any confusion would be quelled, but we should probably be very forthcoming that no action to actually pave the road has occurred as of yet, or because we're only in the concept design phase.
Okay, well, thank you, Mr. Manager. Let me acknowledge Ms. Gilliard.
I just want to go back to our prior budget meeting. And during that prior budget meeting, I inquired about the chemicals that we put on the road to prevent the dust from coming up. And another council person said during that meeting that the residents did not want the road paved. I did not bring up paving. I have not asked for paving. And so I'm a little blindsided about people being concerned about a plan to pave the road when no such plan exists. And as the council person for the district, I've not asked for that. I have fought for there to be some design work to occur to determine what should be done with Hall Road. And thus far, there's been money in the budget for design for this year. It was 100,000. I see that there's 200,000 for next year, but nothing really has been done. So I'm really, really glad. Everything to me is a blessing in disguise. I'm glad that the citizens on Hall Road spoke up, especially about the infrastructure that everybody on this council and anybody who listens to our meetings know that I have been fighting for ever since I got in this seat. And as it relates to sewer, water, gas, electric, cameras, and all of that, it's very true. It has not occurred yet. So I'm waiting for that to happen. As I look at how we're spending money, how we're spending money, where we're spending it, and how much we're spending it. So thank you, Hall Road, for coming and speaking up so the entire city can hear it, but more importantly, so that the mayor and council can hear it as well. It helps me to be able to fight for us. Thank you.
Ms. Well, let me get to the queue too. Ms. Willis, go ahead. I'm trying to get to the queue.
Yes, and so thank you for all the residents for all of your engagement, and thank you for your engagement last week in the chat box. That's where this discussion started. It was mentioned that
Let me get to the queue too.
there was mention of Hall being paved as a result of it. Several residents immediately put in the chat box they were against it. And not only did they put in the chat box they were against it, they followed up with public comments. So thank you. We hear you loud and clear. Mr. On the priority number 2, Public Works, what is stated is gravel road paving Hall Road, $200,000. Can you or Public Works specifically tell me what that means? Because it specifically says as priority 2, it's currently not in the budget, but it's listed as a priority 2. gravel road paving Hall Road 200,000. What is that
Yeah,
for?
well, remember, you're gonna get an update. That was a placeholder. You're gonna actually get an update today, as we kind of discussed regarding that. But what it is, again, just like I described, the first thing you do is you do a concept design based on the need. And so we haven't, again, there's no money allocated to it. I think there may have even been some confusion in the comments just made by Ms. Gilliard in that, yes,
There's no confusion.
there was $100,000 allocated in this year, but in a previous presentation, the one that we did for the department head budgets, there actually $100,000 would not be enough to actually complete the project. And so what the proposed budget says, and again, that's one of those unfunded needs that Public Works has identified as a priority. And so with that unfunded need, the estimate is about $200,000. But again, we would have to have a concept design, which we currently don't have. Once a concept design is done, it would then be taken to the community. The community would be able to give insights and input. So let's say the concept said to pave the whole road. Well, the community has already said that they don't want that, so it wouldn't say that. But what it would be is taking all of the petition that I received today, all of the different information, and then that would be provided to whoever does the concept design. That would be brought to the citizens to get their feedback, to understand if this is what they want and if it satisfies that need. And then the second phase is to bring back a real final design. And then they would also actually have an opportunity to comment and weigh in on that. And so that 200,000 is a placeholder. We actually don't know what it would cost because again, you've got to get the design done to get those final costs.
I understand. Thank you so much for your explanation. But if it's saying gravel road paving Hall Road, what are we doing a concept design for? Residents are saying they don't want that gravel road paved.
Well, residents have said that this week. We didn't have anything to start with. Remember, this is done in advance. These plans are, these concepts are ideas. It's basically, you know, you have an issue, right? You don't know how you're going to solve it, but you know you have an issue. So you start and put a placeholder. I mean, we could have just named it Hall Road Solution, but that might not have been as clear. And so you're looking at, you know, how do you attack it? So you've got to have a concept.
I get that, but I know that all of us as council people, we advocate for what we want or what we feel that the residents want in our area. And I just want to make a point that that concept design, gravel road, paving Hall Road, that had to come from somewhere. It didn't just come out of the sky. And so I just want to.
I think that I believe that Public Works has received, and I'm not sure, I believe Ms. Gilliard put the initial amount of funding or requested the initial amount, which was the 100,000 for a project that would be focused on Hall Road. I don't know if she went as far as to recommend whether it be paved or gravel or anything of that nature. I don't get into the sausage making as much, but what I would say is that there has been advocacy for a solution to Hall Road to be provided, and Public Works is responding to that.
Mr. Mayor? Mr. Mayor?
Mayor,
Mayor Edwards?
Just a minute, we're following protocol. We're in the queue. Ms. Willis, are you finished?
Yes, I yield. Thank you.
Mr. Khalid, you're next. Mr. Khalid, are you unmuted?
Sorry about that. I'm going to yield back to Councilwoman Gilliard in a second because I have a few interests about this Hall Road issue. I just want to be clear, though. It sounds like someone is spraying the gravel with chemicals to keep the dirt down on Hall Road. Is that correct?
Mr. Valenzuela, can you chime in on the process for maintaining Hall Road, please?
Good morning, Mayor and Council. With regards to the question on how to treat dirt roads, we use calcium chloride. It's the method that's used throughout the country. And it is a way to treat for dust abatement. We currently do it twice a year.
Okay. That's spraying a road with chemicals. It's just it's an inorganic compound. So I'm not sure how it breaks down. That's a little concerning to me. I'm going to yield to Councilwoman Gilliard. I would ask that you yield back because I had some different things to talk about. Thank you.
Okay, I will, and I'll be brief. So I did not know that that there was an issue on Hall Road with the dirt and the buses from the schools. And one of my constituents, Mr. Hadley, was the one who brought it to my attention and and asked for some relief. And that's how we got to the chemicals being sprayed. And then last year, there was discussion about, well, what could be a permanent solution? And that was when $100,000 was set aside for design to come up with something that would be a solution, but that was not enough money. I don't even know if 200,000 this year, if that passes, is enough money. So I've been involved, with maybe 2 or 3 people on the street about this issue. And now that I know, and I'm really, really glad that a lot of people on the street have come forward with what it is that they want. And there are other issues that really, really need to be addressed. And cameras is definitely one that's been a real long fight with all of the trash and rubbish on Hall and Jones Road. So I'm really, really glad, but there is no confusion on my part in terms of what the people want and don't want. And that's why when I heard by someone else that the people on Hall Road don't want the road to be paved, I know that everyone does not feel that way. And so that's something that we're going to have to work through as a district to make sure that everyone's voice is heard. So I hear you. Thank you.
Ms. Khalid, you still on the clock at 2.
Hey, thanks so much. So I didn't know that I was giving away my time. That's fine if that's going to be our new policy. My question for Mr. Donald is, in this document that you sent over with the priorities, our public works is $1.5 million, and you have suggested 500,000. Is it that we don't need the other million this year? Could you explain the 500,000?
Yeah, I'm actually going to go through the entire memorandum. That was the plan. So
let's do that. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
go ahead.
So I think that's.
Excuse me. Mr. Donald?
Yes, sir.
I'm still running this meeting.
Oh, I agree. And that's why I didn't
if Ms. Khalid, are you finished?
Well, I have several questions about that document, and I will hold them if we're going to have a presentation of that document. I can hold them until after that presentation.
Okay, you've been up twice. We'll hold it. Mr. Donald, would you go into your presentation?
I've actually only been up once. I yielded my time and it came back.
1.43, but not be carried over. Mr. Donald, thank you, Mr. Khalid. Mr. Donald, will you go ahead?
Yes, sir. Madam Clerk, would you mind putting that up for us, please? And so, very quickly, let me make sure I've got this. Got it. And so very quickly, you have received a presentation, I'm sorry, a PowerPoint presentation at the last meeting. In addition to that, there was an accompanying memorandum. I have included both of those, as well as the full list that I believe multiple council members have shared in their newsletters and on their screen and all of that good stuff that highlights all of the city's unfunded needs. And so there's a total of a little under $7 million that was removed from the budget. The council has made decisions that bring about 1.1, I believe is actually $1,126,000 back into the city's coffers for us to be able to address some of these unfunded needs. And in your wisdom, you will prioritize those and make a decision on them. But as staff, you also asked us to prioritize those top needs in order, as well as make a recommendation. And so that recommendation is provided here too. So the first of those, I believe, is ensuring that, and it's a complete recommendation, so not one above the other, but in collaboration. So the first is to allocate 10 police officers. And so the cost of police officers is more than $350,000, but with limited resources and multiple needs, my recommendation is to allocate $350,000 towards officers. If the chief was to hire those officers at different times within the year, which you'll see within this proposal, it changes the cost of those based on the time for which they come on board. Knowing that there are additional openings that he will have to fill before he gets to the 10 new officers, we are projecting those hires to take place in April. So if those hires occur on April 1st, then you have 6 months of salary that would need to be paid and benefits. This is an all-inclusive cost for those staff members, with the exception of tools and equipment, which I'll get into next. But the overall cost would be about $334,000. I prefer to recommend a strong round number to give some wiggle room, especially because we will incur additional cost savings. And so those costs for police are $350,000, taking into account when they will actually hire and the total cost to the city for this fiscal year. And so again, that recommendation would provide police officer 2 already certified, ready to hit the street officers at 10 officers at that time. And then we'll be able to reevaluate at both the first quarter and mid-year budget. The second priority would be the bridge maintenance. It would be public works, and it's the primary areas that we can resolve for public works. And so that would include bridge maintenance. And while the total cost is $1.5 million, we have received some LMIG funding and things of that nature. The timing of when those projects would start, as well as some additional commitments that we are working through with GDOT and others, as well as the ability to leverage our federal CARES Act allocation to resolve additional issues, which we would again spread across the entire city, is the reason why that infrastructure, I think both Ms. Gilliard and Ms. Willis in the previous comments highlighted the needs to address infrastructure. And so allocating that $500,000 in public works to cover 3 infrastructure related activities, which would be the bridge maintenance to augment the funding already allocated. Number 2, to take care of that state right-of-way maintenance, which we have not been satisfied with, and neither are our residents. And then in addition to that, street sweeping, going from currently having 2 a year to adding enough funding to where we could actually do up to 12 a year. And so you would not be allocating $500,000 for bridges. You would be allocating $500,000 to public works to be spread across 3 needs. We believe having that additional funding would take the state right-of-way maintenance contract. We can we've been negotiating it without having the funding to do so. Having the funding to do so, we believe we can take the cost down from 125 to a little bit lower. In addition to that, with the street sweeping, you know, depending on what the bridge maintenance needs are, we will now be able to potentially take the street sweeping and negotiate that into our overall agreement and maybe get, let's say, 10 sweeps, maybe not 12, but get the number down to 10 sweeps for the price of 6. And so that gives us the ability and authority to negotiate, because right now we're just receiving quotes. Once you have cash in hand, you're able to actually better evaluate and manage within the budget that you have. We've always shown that we have strong cost savings. That's why we're in the solid financial position that we're in now. And so this allocation of those funds would allow us to continue that trend, but have the resources in hand to attack them. You can go to the next page, Madam Clerk. And so I'm sorry, you have to go back up one because there's something missing. I'm sorry, I just didn't see it at the bottom. It made it to the first page. So the other item is, I believe that we have to be prepared for the unforeseen, and the contingency funds allow us to allocate those things across either operations or personnel as the council deems appropriate. And so I would attack those areas of concern right away in advance of the budget, and then all other financial concerns or service related activities, we would augment the contingency by an additional $300,000 to ensure that we are well prepared to manage any challenges that the pandemic provides. You know, the longer this goes on, the bigger of a challenge it is. And we are watching our finances on a monthly basis, but we're doing biweekly check-ins to identify trends and things of that nature to ensure that we are prepared for any changes that come at the hands of the pandemic. And so if you couple the additional funds with the contingency, we get up over $2 million, and then our allocation, which I believe the mayor and the other mayors will be announcing with the Fulton County Board of Commissioners, will also help to augment and add relief to the budget to help resolve these additional priorities. And so now, Madam Clerk, if you go to the next slide, next page, when you look at the other top priorities, because that's what this is, just the top priorities, it remains the next number one priority is information technology and cybersecurity. And so I've not allocated any money, nor have I given any insights, because that is deemed a sensitive subject that I believe we can discuss in private executive session or offline. But I think that that should be another priority for which we ensure that we invest in. Next, I believe those infrastructure issues, while we would have allocated funds to public works, we have so many infrastructure issues throughout the city based on the previous management of county-related activities before there was a city. I think those things rise to the priority. And so that would be priority number 2. I think priority number 3 is community development and regulatory affairs, professional services, mainly around the comprehensive plan. And the reason why it falls to number 3 is because the ARC, and I actually have another call with Mr. Doug Hooker regarding their support, but the ARC is friendly to actually helping to fund and coordinate the delivery of our comprehensive plan in partnership with the city. And so with that being the case, we would not have to allocate funding. We would partner with them and then have that exercise carried out, which again lowers the priority of allocating funding in advance. In addition, we know that Parks and Recreation has some challenges with their tools and equipment, and so that rises to number 4. A close one with that, almost neck and neck, and so it really is based on the desires of the council, is adding that additional support to Destination South Fulton. And while I listed the staff and the equipment and fixtures. Of course, the folks who would be coordinating the Collab South activities have dual roles. And so I believe that potentially rises a little higher than the equipment, furniture, and fixtures, especially since we are going through the pandemic. Fire, while their needs for tools and equipment are important, we just did a refresh and made extremely heavy investments in fire during the FY 2020 year. Some of them you're also considering related to policy. And so just by default, with other areas not being addressed as quickly as we would like, fire falls to a lower priority. I've already spoken about the finance and human resources, and some of those commitments come now from the city manager's office, but also I think with the large levels of staff that we've added to those subject areas, we should be able to clearly make some progress. And then finally, the police lease vehicles. I believe that based on the information provided by the city treasurer, all capital projects were rolled into the URA. And so those lease vehicles were capital leases. And so those funds should readily be included. And so while police included them and listed them, I would not consider that a concern. And so that concludes my overview of priority, except for, I'm sorry, one thing. If you scroll through, Madam Clerk, you can go to the next slide. Just a reminder, the full details of the unfunded needs, and you can continue to scroll, Madam Clerk, were already provided in the previous memorandum in great detail for each one. And so I simply prioritize the top listing of those. The full listing is there, and then you can go to the end, Madam Clerk. What you will see is that, I'm sorry, slide, this one is what I'm trying to show, is that there is a total need of about $7 million. And again, as we provided, those are quote unquote nice to haves, meaning that they are all things that are valuable and necessary for the city. But it would be quite ambitious to believe that in the first 3 years, even the first 4 years of the city, we would resolve all of the outstanding issues that we inherited during the transition from Fulton County's management to the city of South Fulton's management. And so that concludes my presentation or discussion on the priorities and the city manager's recommendation. I would simply remind you that this is the city manager's recommendation and recommendation only from the perspective of overseeing all of those service areas. But of course, I always defer to the will of the council and your knowledge and insights on what your priorities are. And I have made available each department head who of course feels that their priorities are the most important ones. And so they can answer any questions that you might have related to these priorities.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Councilmember Rao. Councilmember Rao.
Thank you, Mayor. Just for clarification, as we deliberate, I can't implore enough the importance of us focusing on our commercial areas. I know for Old National as well as Camilton Road, we have new commercial development going along Camilton Road, and the maintenance is a major issue. For the last 2 years, I have been paying out of my district funds to supplement the state activity. Those dollars don't go far because it's expensive. And so I would hope that wherever we land on that, we really think about that. We always talk about bringing economic development to our city. We have to make sure our city is clean and well maintained. So I can't stress enough for the money that's earmarked works that we make that a priority.
Okay. Thank you so much, Councilmember Rao. Councilmember Gumbs.
Mayor.
I'm sorry, Councilmember Gilliard.
Okay.
Councilmember Gilliard.
So I'm looking at these recommended priorities, and what I'm having a problem with is knowing that there is a pandemic, that we are really facing a huge unknown. And I get it that there are a lot of things that we can't do right away, but what does, wow, my bell is ringing. What does bother me is that I don't see something that says, well, this is a recommendation for sometime in the future, but in the meantime, here's this emergency fund that would be used to cover whatever we think might be an emergency as it relates to the pandemic. I mean, the whole business situation might even get worse, and we're struggling right now, just trying to, maintain partially. So having all of these items, and it doesn't take away from what the items are. I just don't get it. I'm gonna have to yield because my bell is ringing. So I'm sorry, but Mr. Mayor, can I come back? I might have 2 more minutes.
No, ma'am. The second time.
Mayor
Okay,
Edwards,
I need to let the next person go because my bell is ringing and I have to find out
Mayor-
why.
Okay, that was your second time. Did
Mayor
you want to
Edwards.
respond, Mr.
Yeah,
Mr. Donald?
Yeah, Mayor Edwards, I think, and I guess we can play the tape back for Councilmember Gilliard. It'll be included in the minutes from the clerk. But I think she has forgotten briefly that we've gotten, and of course it's not official, and that's why it hasn't been included, but the allocation of the CARES Act funding actually would be utilized for those purposes. And so cities, and I believe our portion of the allocation of that $30 million, I don't want to utilize the numbers publicly, but it's done based on population, and that's for the upfront funds. And so staff doesn't wait around to receive the money to come up with the plan. We've already been working on a go live plan so that from day one, we're able to put those funds to work in the community once, of course, presented and agreed, approved on, and tweaked by our council. And so we are expecting to bring a recommendation back to the council via memorandum prior to discussing it publicly in advance of the September 22nd meeting. And we expect to receive notification of those funds. I think you know, Mayor, because you've been in the mayor's meeting, but I also participate in the twice a week city managers meeting. And so we expect within 7 business days from tomorrow to receive that notification, if not before. And so the concerns about allocating those additional funds, we wouldn't use the city funds to do that. We would utilize the CARES Act because they're literally there for emergencies related to the coronavirus pandemic.
And Mr. Donald, before you leave, somewhere down the line, we've forgotten what the word contingency means. And talk to us about a little bit about the contingency, because when I hear as council people tell me, say on publicly that we don't have any emergency fund, would you kind of explain what contingency is?
Well, I think, well, it's a contingency. In case of emergency, pull this lever. And so I think what those funds are to be able to, I mean, throughout the year, all governments, really any organization is going to have unforeseen challenges. It's also why we overestimate our expenditures and underestimate our revenues, so that we're always in a place of being prepared for the unforeseen, whether you have to pay a little bit more for to get the highest level of staff member, or if a construction project is overrun by your cost estimates or whatever it is, we already budget for that. But then your contingency is if things go even over and above that. I think you mentioned last night during South Fulton University, on my first day in the city, we had a tornado. And so we were able to use relationships and, sweat equity to be able to resolve issues for our residents. But the contingency actually allows you to do that more effectively. And that's what it's for. And that's also, I was going to just let it go by, but I think to also respond to Councilmember Gilliard, the reason I'm recommending taking basically a third of the new revenues and assigning them to contingency is to allow us even more support for emergencies beyond the CARES Act.
I just wanted to clear that up because I don't want no one in the public to think
the
process that we go through in terms of the budget, that we do not think about what we call contingency and what other people may call emergency funds. So I just wanted to explain that.
Mr. Mayor, I'm back. Can I have my 2 minutes?
I will continue to do.
Okay.
We have Mr. Khalid in right now. Mr. Khalid. Mr. Khalid. Don, come here.
I'm sorry. Are we not going back to Councilman Gilliard?
No,
okay.
You on you.
No. Okay. All right. I'm gonna share my screen again, as I often do. And
let me say this on that. Is that screen a part of the manager's presentation?
You know what? It's actually a part of our city council website. So let's start there, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Well, let me just say this. We pulled up those screens before, and we've been a little bit disingenuous in our comments. So I hope.
Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to explain everything that I'm doing, and if at any point you feel like I'm being disingenuous, I will stop. This is our city website, cityofsouthfultonga.gov. That's our city website. That's not my website.
I understand.
Okay.
As long as we're not being disingenuous, go right ahead.
So the first thing is, in transparency, I just want to make sure that our residents know where they can find the budget. When you go to the website, if you look under budget, or if you type in the word budget, you're going to pull up the finance and administrative services, and you're going to find all of last year's budgets. In order to find this year's budgets, you actually have to go to the city manager's website and click on budget. And this is where you find both the budget priorities that the city manager just went through. And actually, this is an older slide presentation, so I trust, Mr. Donald, that you will have. Oh no, this is the one that just came up.
Correct.
I'm just showing people where the information.
Mayor, point of order.
Hold on. Go ahead, Mr. Donald.
No, I was just saying he's exactly correct. As our practice that as soon as we send anything related to the active budget deliberations, we publish it on the city manager's page. Once it is adopted by the council and it is the approved final document, it then is a part of the financial record and provided under the normal area. So that's 100% correct.
Thank you. So I'm just going to—
Mayor, point of order.
I will acknowledge you in a minute. What's your point of order?
My point of order is that this is a budget hearing in relation to the fiscal 21 budget. While I appreciate my colleague educating residents, this is not the forum for that. Our forum today is specifically for the fiscal 21 budget hearing.
Okay, one moment. Madam Parliamentarian?
Yes, Mayor.
I'm going to allow that point of order because it helped me out. It seems to be procedural. Am I correct?
Well, so I'm of the opinion, as long as it pertains to the budget conversation and it's within the allotted time that each council member is allowed to speak, that it would be proper. But I mean, obviously, I'll defer to.
Well, I'm going to say this. If there's a point of order, it must be procedural. And if there is a point of order, you cannot use that motion to continue debate. So I'm asking in your to opine as to whether that point of order.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. I agree with you there.
So are you agreeing that it's procedural?
That it's procedural in the sense that Councilwoman Willis's point of order. She's asked for a matter of procedure. Is this allowed to occur?
Right.
I do agree that her point of order is procedural. I'm not aware of any policy that you guys have established that would limit this. If that's something that she's interested in, I can certainly help establish a policy. I don't think Robert rules.
Chair.
You excuse me.
God.
You answered my question as being policy, and there is a policy. It's called Robert Rules of Order, and so I'm going to allow your point of order, Miss Willis, to be taken. All right, now Mr. Khalid was had the floor. Mr. Khalid, go ahead.
Okay, so this is the presentation that you just showed us, and I just showed people where they could find it on the website. I want to start with Public Works. So I'm still confused. There's $1.5 million that is allocated to Public Works just for bridge maintenance. We know that our bridges have not been inspected since 2017, and the GDOT report estimates that's $1.5 million. However, we have $125,000 for right-of-way maintenance. We have $125,000 for street sweeping, which actually just leaves $250,000, 1/6 of the GDOT annual report's recommendation. And so my question is, which bridges will be made? If they are estimating it's $1.5 million, how are we going to do it for $250,000?
So I'll kind of repeat that again, because I went through that in pretty great detail. So here, remember, we already have some funding allocated from our LMIG programs. In addition to the LMIG programs, we have been working with GDOT, just as we received the additional $350,000 to help supplement even the LMIG funding that we had already been allocated to address those issues. Further, we are working, and I don't like to put the actual dollar amount out until we get the award letter, but we're working with GDOT on additional funding that will address these issues. Also,
Okay,
you will not begin, you gotta let me finish, council member.
I'm sorry.
You asked me a detailed question. Also, we will not begin all of these projects on day one. So you would not expend the full 1.5 million within the first year. The other funds that you are looking at here at the 125 and the 124, the 124 was if we street sweeped every month. We would not do that. We would actually, because we would have funds in hand as we have with the maintenance fund, we would negotiate those costs down. And so the projection is to be able to do 10 sweeps for the cost of 6. I included all of those areas because we're also already paying for 2 sweeps. So if you're paying for 2 and you could get 10 for the cost of 6, it would actually take that overall cost down to $74,000. In addition to that, when you look at the state right-of-way maintenance, that is the current cost that the state is paying. As the person that's coming behind the state and piggybacking with additional business and within the environment of Corona, that cost would also go down. And so those costs going down to approximately $125,000 for both allows you, where we're basically paying on the bridges, we're receiving grants and support in that manner. And so it basically would allow us to have the city's match to resolve those issues. And so otherwise you wouldn't have enough money in the whole 1.126 to be able to actually address the bridges at all anyway. And so what the recommendation is providing the appropriate amount of funding and then allowing us to manage the projects to delivery. I hope that was clear enough.
Sort of. There were a lot of ifs, and we may get this money. I am going to rely on your expertise for that. But this document says bridge maintenance 55. And so are we going to be able to maintain 55 bridges with $250,000 and whatever other LMIG money and other agreements that we're able to work out? I just want to make sure that the paper reflects what we're actually able to do.
So what I am asking to do, I mean, I don't think there's enough money in the budget to maintain all of the infrastructure problems, and I've been pretty straightforward and transparent in that. So the answer would be absolutely not. You would not be able to resolve all of those issues. What you would be able to do is the bridges that we have received poor reports on would be able to be repaired and maintained, which we're doing right now in budget, but you are accelerating. And again, I said this at the last meeting, you are accelerating the repairs and maintenance. Those things are already in budget and happening, but the repairs and maintenance are often delayed based on funding. This actually puts them on schedule because you would be allocating the funds to be able to implement what you're currently doing at a faster rate.
Okay. So my next question is about the police officers. So are you saying that by April 21, we would be able to hire 10 police officers?
Correct.
Okay, and so the 334 for 6 months, that would be about $34,000 per officer. That
Correct.
includes their salary and their fringe benefits for 6 months?
That is correct.
All right, and so my question would be to you or to Chief Meadows, whoever would like to chime in, what will it cost to have tools and equipment, to have them outfitted with all of the tools and equipment that they would need to do their job?
So I'll defer to the chief on that because they're working through that process now, and they have already actually pre-bought some of those things. The issue would be ensuring that they have cars available, which is why the leased vehicles is an important area. We're stocked up on ammunition and weaponry and things of that nature, but the automobiles is the key area that we would be looking for. And so the instructions and the guidance and the task that I've assigned to Chief Meadows is that while we normally trend for that 20% under budget in each quarter of the first 2 quarters, and usually we don't have a direct earmarked place where we would want to assign those funds. This year would be different. He would be quote unquote saving with a purpose to ensure that he would have during the mid-year budget the resources to be able to ensure that those cars, if they are not covered in the URA, would be provided through the cost savings. And then in addition to that, potentially provide us the ability to look at hiring an additional 10 officers so that he can move to 20. Chief Meadows, I was trying to give you enough time to unmute and loop into the conversation. So if you're prepared to provide a response, feel free to chime in.
Mr. Manager?
Yes, sir.
I don't think that the chief is there. He's presently.
Oh, that's right. That's right. That's right.
He's presently dealing with a shooting on Old National Highway.
That's right.
This week, so he's out meeting with attorneys and business owners right now.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for that explanation, because that was my next question was about the cars. I'm going to ask a few questions of our city attorney, because I just want to make sure that we're doing everything in decency. You know, I'm sorry.
Go ahead. I'm sorry,
Madam Attorney. We are required by Georgia state law to pass a balanced budget. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, and so, and the city manager brings us a budget. Our charter says that the city manager brings us a budget, and then we vote on that budget or make changes or do whatever that we're going to do for that budget.
That's correct.
Okay, and a couple of weeks ago, we raised property taxes to come up with $1.1 million more for our budget. So instead of having a $68 million budget, we now have a $69 million and some change budget.
Yes, that's my understanding.
And so there is a, I'm actually going to just share my screen one more time. There is an actual budget that is on the city manager's website, review the proposed budget. And so this is the budget. This is the budget that was created before we raised the $1 million in property taxes. So am I correct in saying that at some point before September 22nd, which is next Tuesday, we will need to make available a budget like this that adds in the $1.1 million? And perhaps this document is a sufficient addendum to this document. And if we just have these two up, is this a significant, I mean, is this a sufficient addendum to explain what we're doing with the $1.1 million? And I ask that because there is $1.1 million on page 1, but there's a list of other things on page 2 that are not covered in the 1.1 million.
Yeah, this is simply the council requested that in this budget hearing, the priorities be lined up individually, the top priorities, so that you as a council who actually adopt the budget. I provide a proposed budget, and again, the proposed budget was based off of the rollback millage rate. The millage rate has since changed during that time, and the council now has to incorporate those new revenues into the overall budget. And so my task was to bring back these priorities, and then the council was to work with the CFO treasurer, who is readily available to actually do the moving of funds and whatever you decide to do, whether you accept those recommendations, tweak them or whatever. And so you have this meeting, and it's not actually the 22nd. I believe the meeting is scheduled for the 25th, where you would actually adopt. And so you have those two meetings, or a additional special call meeting if you were desire to do one, to actually finalize that process.
So my question for the attorney is, it's actually not the council's responsibility, it's the city manager's responsibility to publish a balanced budget with the additional revenue. That's my question for the city attorney.
Madam Attorney, I will allow you to answer. The lead has timed out, and that's the second go around, but go ahead and answer the question.
Yeah, so that's Councilman Khalid, that's correct. That's my understanding. And I think it's kind of in alignment with what the city manager has presented, in the sense that he's presented priorities. And then based on the direction that the council gives, he will incorporate those priorities and then bring back and give the council a amended budget. It's the one that you just pulled up that's on the website, but that incorporates these priorities. And I think now, obviously, I'd have to look at the list again. I don't think city manager, you can probably answer best as to whether right now it levels out to the amount of the tax increase.
Yeah, so it would, but I think there is we have a slight disagreement on that process. So the city manager is to present a proposed balanced budget. That has been done. A proposed balanced budget was presented, and we probably should, I mean, the treasurer is the overseer of all of this process, so it's probably best for him to weigh in. I mean, that's the person who has, that secondary fiscal, responsibility. But once the proposed budget is presented, the council adopts the budget for which we move forward in. And so, yes, presenting that to the public, ensuring it's readily available, managing to all of those things, you're 100% correct. But once the proposed budget is provided to the council, you then deliberate so that we move towards an adopted budget. And so with that, I would defer to the city treasurer for additional insight.
Thank you, Mr. Donald. Councilman Khalid, if you would bring up that budget, you just brought it up, bring it up. Councilman Khalid, if you would share that, yeah. So if you Pull up. Okay, so if you see the budget that was presented to the council is a balanced budget. What we did was, if you recall, the $500,000 was to be used for debt payment that you promised last year. So the $500,000 was already incorporated here. Now, if you are going to change how to allocate it, as the city manager has indicated, to say that this money has to be used in this 300 to police, 300 contingency, and 500 to public safety, it's already included. If you would see from the last one, which is the total of 68,855,405, if you go up, you find there's $1.1 million. And that 1.1, if you go to the left, which we went through, is saying that revenue to be a usage of this to be determined. So we had 1.1 in expenditures and we had 1.1 in revenues, but expenditures usage was yet to be determined, and you council, you are going to determine. The city manager has given his recommendation. You have legal authority to direct how you want that, or to ask the city manager to say, yes, we understand what you have given us, but this is how we want to use that $1.1 million. So as it is, the budget is balanced because that 1.1 is already there, but how you are going to utilize that. If you still don't know, or you still don't agree with what he has suggested, we can put the whole of that one to contingency. Then you can think of how to allocate that. But the budget as it is now is balanced budget.
That's an excellent point by Mr. Malazi, that is important, that you actually don't have to accept any of these recommendations, and you could wait until a later time and actually assign funds one by one to each line that you desire by simply moving all of the excess revenue into the contingency area.
Right. Mr. Malazi?
Yes, ma'am.
One question before we leave, because it seems to me that everything that we've been talking about has been procedural.
Mayor, I'm in the queue.
Will y'all, I see the queue. I will get every queue number. Would you at this time opine to the fact that we have compiled with every budget procedure that we need to at this stage?
Yes, we have. This will be the last one, third public hearing.
That's enough said. We have complied with budgetary procedure. And I think that the people need to understand that. If there's questions beyond that, a lot of this can be aired out before we hit on this public forum. So I'm just want to make sure that for the record, that we have complied by way of Mr. Malazi with all our procedures. And now I'll go to Ms. Willis.
So thank you, Mr. Donald, for your thorough explanation and for your recommendations. I would like to ditto what Councilman Morale suggested to this entire council. I would like to see some emphasis placed on the major litter problem that is existing throughout our entire city. The major cities that I did travel that were clean, such as Texas, we went to San Antonio city, very clean city. All of those cities make investment in programs that pay people to pick up litter. The perfect situation is for residents that assist in this effort, and we do a big litter campaign, but that is just not our reality right now. And so if we want a clean city, we are going to need to invest. Second of all, Mr. Donald, can you please clarify, because I do not want, you gave a thorough presentation last budget hearing. And what you explained is, if we did not raise the mill rate, we would have been fine. We would have been able to pay our bills. We would have been able to operate at status quo. the narrative is that we're broke. The narrative that have employees and residents nervous is that we are at a deficit, and that is a false narrative. And I would like for you to please clarify that. And also, before I yield to you, Mr. Donald, this budget also includes a 15% budget cut. And so there is still a narrative that we did not make any cuts. And that is also a false narrative. So I would like for you to clarify that. Now, with the mill rate increase that we majority agreed to do, what that did is raise $1.8 million. And you are simply giving us recommendations on how we should spend that $1.8 million based on a priority list that the council came up with, and the based on our strategic plan and based on the needs that the residents have requested. Number one, we have a new beat alignment that requires us to have more police officers. Everybody wants to be safe. So with the current budget, without the mill rate increase, we would not have been able to hire more officers. With this mill rate increase, you have recommended how we can do that. You have also recommended how we could put more money in our public works projects. You have recommended how we could put more money in our contingency. So I will yield. Please stop the clock so Mr. Donald can please explain, so we can kill the false narrative that we are broke, that we are in a deficit, that we had to raise the mill rate because the city is in debt.
Yeah, so that's that. I think you hit the nail on the head. I would say that it's actually a little under 1.2 million that was raised, not the 1.8. And so I think it's 100% correct, and it's pretty easy. I would say the council has gone through great lengths to put a lot of information into the public and give access to tools. And so I think the majority of our public has definitely done a great job in using OpenGov and, inquiring, being engaged, and all of those things. So I would hope that that narrative doesn't have legs, because the city is in the best financial position it has ever been. I think you can look at our original budget of $65 million and this budget, which is a trimmed down budget, which is now at about 116 million, plus the additional resources that you're looking at. But it is exactly like you, and I think every council member has explained, is that our council has been very clear that you want world-class services. And I will just be as frank as I can possibly be. Every elected official that sits on the dais wants everything now on behalf of their residents. And for way too long, everybody knows Dick Anderson, a very good friend of mine. I've known him since I was a child, have a lot of respect for the Board of Commissioners. I get it. But for a very long time before incorporation, they ignored investments into the city. And because of that, all of our needs are coming to bear at one time. And so you had some bridges go out that we didn't expect. You had roadway, a ton of different things. But the city, based on just the rollback rate and our cuts, which all of them we did not have to make, because you've heard from the city treasurer that our revenues actually have not slowed as much as we projected. And so the city is not only continuing on the path to right all of those wrongs in record time, and I'll tell you, you've got all of these extremely talented folks working extremely hard to make sure we bring those things to fruition. And so we had planned to do so at the rollback rate. But now that we have these additional funds, what it simply means is, as we try to move the city forward towards world class, because our residents, you heard, they don't want a paved road or a gravel road. They want a mix. They want exactly what they want, the best that they want in record time, and they deserve that. And so what the city is doing is taking these thousands of priorities that were left unfunded and letting the highest level of priority be funded first while we address all of the others. And so it's not that we don't have the funds to make payroll or keep the lights on or things like that. I think it's just our councils are being great stewards of the funds and making sure that the priorities are met first. and that we add innovation at the same time. And so listen, those narratives, I've given everybody my cell phone number and email address. Our chief does the same thing. But the information is actually, Mr. Khalid showed the website. There are hundreds of memos. The financial documents are there for everybody to see. There are no secrets in our city. We've got a fully transparent government. So instead of listening to naysayers who spread false narratives, pay attention to your city and hold us accountable to these public documents. It would be my recommendation.
Mr. Donna, I also would like for you,
Oh my God,
or Mr. Malazi, to speak on the fact that our city is one of the few cities that offer senior exemptions and city homestead exemptions. The only other city south of I-20 that does that is Chat Hills. And so when people are saying we are raising taxes, if we didn't have homestead exemptions, that we probably wouldn't have to raise the mill rate, because all of that money that we are exempting so that we can take care of our seniors, that would go back into the city general fund. The average 65-year-old in the city of South Fulton is paying very little to no property taxes at all. And so I stated that I am going to make a concerted effort to reach out to all my seniors who are receiving senior exemptions so they can see that this mill rate had no impact on most of them. So for seniors to feel that we are taxing them out of their homes, that's not true. Because most seniors in this city that are 65 or above, because of the senior exemptions that we as leaders of this city are offering to you, are paying no taxes, and some of them are paying very few taxes. So thank you so much. Can you please speak to that?
Yeah, and I'll definitely defer to Mr. Malazi, because he has done an excellent job.
Hold on, I need Mr. Donald, please. Thank you. I need some more minutes added to the clock, because Mr.
20
Donald.
seconds. I was looking at it, 20 seconds.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll defer to Mr. Malazi to chime in, because I just think he's done a great job in really managing the process of our finances. But I would say that one service that he's put in place that I think is really good, and I know there's no other city, because I've called all 14 cities with the exception of Atlanta. I don't know what they're doing, but the 14 Fulton County cities, he's actually been responding to both the public comments and any direct questions that have come for people who want to do examples of how much tax they would pay. And what we've seen is that for especially our seniors who get multiple exemptions, that they would actually have no impact. And so that's probably not true for all 100,000 residents, but I think the council has, I went through the presentation, and that's also available on the city manager's website, where you can kind of dig into it and see how it impacts you. But I do think that our city treasurer has gone above and beyond and will continue to do so, very committed to the citizens and our residents to make sure they have any information and any questions, even though that falls under the auspices of the county tax assessor. And so I'll defer to him on those types of activities and what he's done. But and he can talk specifically, as he has a tax unit under his oversight. And Mr. Malazi, if you'd like to chime in, I think you'd have to unmute.
Thank you, Mr. Donald. I think Councilwoman Willis, as you know, we talked in details during the tax increase public hearings, and we have opened up to the public, to the elected officials. If you have any issue to do with taxes, please let us know. We discuss in details. We have the tax administrator. We don't have to get information from Fulton County Tax Commission. We have it ourselves here. So if you have any specific citizen, be elderly ones or anyone or homeowners, please refer them to us. If they can't get more information on our website, we will be happy to sit with them. And with that, again, I wanted Councilwoman Willis, if you would allow me on the block side that the city is a block, I wanted to talk about three things that most of the times we mix up, and that's to do with the fund balance. We have contingency, and we have the cash flow. So contingency in local government has got a limitation. You cannot have contingency beyond 5% of your total expenditure. So contingencies for most of the things that you never know. We call it, in case of anything happens during the course of the year, you can use that money. That's contingency, but it has a limitation of 5% of the total expenditure. You can't go beyond that. Then you have cash flow. Cash flow is the one that makes you keep going. As you all know that without having a strong cash flow in 2019 to get into 2020, wouldn't have been here. We had the extra $12 million 2019 to get into 2020 that has helped us to cushion this pandemic up to now. And we are projecting now that we will go into 2021 with a cash flow of not less than $2 million. So even though our tax due date is the 15th of November, we are not expecting to borrow money to cushion us that 1 month we will not have a tax due, because we expect to have enough to cushion us. And the third one is the fund balance that everyone talks about. What's the makeup of fund balance? The makeup of fund balance is the assets and liabilities. And that fund balance shows how much we are paying out, how much revenues we are receiving in, and how much assets we have. Last year in 2018, 2019, we had a negative fund balance of $8 million. It was $10 million, it came to $8 million. Then as you recall that we finished our transition, and our last transition was public safety. And when it moved from Fulton County to us, they came with equipment, and those are assets and they have values. So when you add those values of assets, you add the values of revenue we have received, you remove liabilities that we have and some obligations. We had a balance of about $18 million in good, in positive. Remove that 80 million negative we had, we have up to now, as I'm talking to you, we have a fund balance of $10 million. That doesn't change. You will see it when we have another audit, how much it will be. So it may be more than $10 million or it will be less than. So we are in good, in all the three we are good. We have enough for cash flow if nothing changes. Hopefully we can limit our expenses. If we can live within our expenses, we should be good. So you have good cash flow, we have good contingency, and we have good fund balance. I would urge you, if you are not very sure of what to do with this $1.1 million, none of the things that the city manager is recommending is due in October. Put money in contingency until you really know what you want to do with that money, $1.1 million. And remember, initially it was a debt payment, or it would be public safety building. But until you know what you want to do, it's already balanced. The budget is already balanced. Put it in contingency and decide a month or 2 months thereafter. Thank you.
All right, Ms. Willis, 20 seconds.
Yes, and so I respect our city manager's recommendation. So I'm not going to agree to put everything in fund balance, because he operates and he knows what he's doing on a daily basis to run the city and what we need. And I trust he's making decisions based on our product. I'm one that pay property taxes that sit on this council, and my property taxes will increase.
Stop, Ms. Willis.
I'm finishing up. My property tax will increase by $60 because of this mill rate, and I'm fine with it if it's going to bring me,
Ms. Willis, you timed out.
better roads. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, can I have my 2 minutes back, Mr. Mayor?
Ms. Gilliard, yes, I got you. Okay.
Okay.
Let me just say this about what Ms. Willis just brought up, especially when it pertains to false narratives. We have heard today from the city manager, and we've heard from our finance person, who had really nothing negative to say about what we're doing and what financial position we're in. They've had nothing negative to say. But some people try to find fault where there is none. We need to stop that. Some people like to be disingenuous about things, which feeds into this false narrative that we get, that we have to come back and explain to our employees what the real deal is. There ain't no fault, ladies and gentlemen. Don't try to find any. Your professionals have told you, Mr. Malazi, your professionals have told you by the city manager, and we waste a lot of time trying to make folk look like fools. And they really are. They know what they're talking about. So I just want to put that out there because Ms. Willis mentions false narratives. And I'm going to tell you, as mayor, I'm not going to continue to let false narratives continue to go on in public, feeding these rumors and innuendos and misrepresentations to our people. Ms. Gilliard, I'm going to give you 2 minutes because you had to answer your door, and I understand.
Yeah, thank you. I want to go back to the contingency. And the reason why I do is because on August the 11th, we received a memo, and in that memo from the city manager, and in that memo, he told us that there was 1.7 million in contingency, and of that 1.7 million, we would be spending probably 1.2 million for Wolf Creek, which would leave $500,000. So I was not aware that there is even any opportunity. And he spoke about being able to obtain additional money that would be able to go into the contingency fund. And so that should be somewhere written so that we would know if things really, really get bad. Not only do we have this 500,000, but we have additional money that we can fall back on. So I just wanted to make that point.
Okay. All right. Let me get 1 second when I get my let me get my queue up again. When I don't, just 1 minute. Okay.
Mayor, Councilmember Rowell is in the queue.
Well, Councilman Rowell, go right ahead.
Thank you. City Manager, thank you for the clarification. I think the memo is clear. Basically, the first page is his recommendation roughly for the $1 million. I actually like what has been presented by the city manager, but would like the council to possibly entertaining pulling a couple things off of that original list, off of page 2. Like the line for Hall Road.
Can't do that.
Excuse me. Miss Gilliard, either you're gonna have to mute yourself or not make comments. Go ahead, Ms. Rao.
Right. That we would consider reducing the contingency to add just 200,000 and to fund some of those priorities. And I'm sure if Ms. Councilwoman Gilliard would have let me finish, she would have understood that what I'm suggesting is that we bring them off of the priority list and actually put them in the budget for fiscal year 21. So you have, can you pull the second page up, city manager or whoever's?
Yeah, Madam Clerk has the presentation and control, so she can bring it back up for you.
Okay, can somebody mute their phone? Right, so street lights is something citywide that has been a priority, so that's 50,000. The Calcium Road, which is a school there, I think we would all be interested in that. There's 60,000. And I do think we need to do something. I've mentioned this previously before. We have these spaces for the Main Street. We need to staff that. You have a Main Street program for, for Destination South Fulton. If we really want to take this burden off our residents, we have to focus on economic development. It's one of the top priorities that we identified in our plan. And I'm just saying out of 300, maybe we look at 150,000 in expenses off the priority 2 list. Street lights for me would be one. I heard the concerns about the chloride applications, that's 60,000. Well, I'll just start with those two. Somebody's phone is like, do y'all hear that?
Yeah, would you please mute your telephones, please?
I don't know who.
Councilwoman Rao, can you go through that one more time, please?
I was suggesting that streetlights under priority number 2, public works, because that would impact the city. 50,000. We might even need to look at those garbage cans. One of the things we constantly have heard about that they're overflowing, and this is one of the smart initiatives, if I recall, where the sensors would notify so that they would be able to be cleared and they're not overflowing. Is that correct, City Manager?
Yes. So, and again, these are additional, that's correct, but these are just additional items that you may want to consider. I would just ask that before you make a move on inserting them, is that you ensure that we kind of talk about each one, because again, we have some things, remember, our share, and I'll just say that it's approximately $3 million, but it depends. I know that some of this is legal and they are negotiating the direct allocation of the CARES Act. But remember, we'll be able to utilize those funds in a more flexible manner in the way that the feds and state allow. And so I think that many of these issues are going to be corrected. And so we provided a list of priorities, but I would not shy away from the recommendation of the city treasurer. And I would hope that you would consider it a joint recommendation, because
I heard his recommendation.
Locked at the hip that some of these things, you know, if there is no direct decision, we are more than willing to do additional research, provide additional information, and in the contingency, you still have a balanced budget and you have a lot more time to deliberate. I just wanted to make sure that that's a joint collaborative recommendation that, you know, and we've done some prioritization that I think gives you a start, but no one is going to know better on how to utilize these funds than the council. And so we want to give you as much time and leeway as possible.
Well, with that said, I personally, again, like the recommendation. I wish the second page of priorities would have been, and I would ask that the staff do this, ones that are likely to be eligible for CARES because they meet the criteria, if you know what I mean. So this is a long list, but everything on that list won't be eligible, right? On page 2. And so I would like to know what those are, so that if we entertain this conversation in the future and we leave it just like the first page recommendation, that we know what we're likely to be able to use that CARES Act fund. I don't want to put it on page 1 as the, you know, to amend the budget to include what you recommended if we can use another source of funds. So the top 3 are police, public works, and contingency. I don't think anybody would argue with those.
And don't forget, you're going to get a go live plan on how to, I got to be cautious on how I say this, but I would believe that the Board of Commissioners is not expecting cities to have a plan to hit the ground running on how to expend those CARES funds. You will get a plan on how the city recommends hitting the ground running and expending those funds based on our needs prior to us even getting the allocation. So I just want you to keep that in mind. That's why those things on page 2 and other activities that we discussed are in play, because similar to reopening plan, you'll get a plan on how to implement CARES and where the money should go.
Well, with that being said, is the council, and I know we're not voting on this, but maybe it's a consensus, are they okay with amending so that it's clear what we're recommending be added to these line items in the general budget, so that they can present us a budget that has all the numbers in it at our next meeting?
Mayor, are we allowed to respond to what Councilmember Rao just asked?
If you're saying yes to the consensus.
Well, I mean, I just can't say yes to the consensus. Mayor, and I'm directing this question to you because you were involved with the negotiations of the CARES Act. I'm confused on when are we supposed to get the CARES Act? How will we know what the CARES Act will be eligible for? And will we get that information prior to when we're supposed to approve this budget on the 22nd?
I think Mr. O'Donnell answered that, but let me be specific. Mr. O'Donnell, can you answer that question again?
Yeah, so I think, let me clarify our recommendation, because I think that will help. The key thing is you want to pass a balanced budget. The budget is now balanced and you have those funds. These priorities, if you have consensus on these priorities, because I don't think the CARES Act really impacts that. It's just, how we will allocate those things to CARES and other funds that we get. The first thing is we've got a balanced budget. So at the, during the budget calendar that we have publicly posted, you can approve the budget and you would just add these funds to contingency. That's actually the recommendation from the city manager and treasurer. But number two, you ask to prioritize how those funds should be spent. That's what this is. And so if you have that consensus in agreement on this, you could simply add it into the budget and not have to worry about it until we receive those CARES funds, which we believe will be within the next 7, or at least the notice, because you get the notice of funding first, within the next 7 business days or next 10 calendar days. And so again, it is, and I think the reason why we're not harping on the CARES Act is because we have these long-standing issues, but the CARES Act is one-time revenue. And so if there are things that we can take care of one time or add innovation to keep us moving, then that's kind of what we're looking to do. And so the first thing I think is you have a balanced budget, and now you know what the staff priorities are aligned as, and you have the opportunity to, when you get the CARES Act Go Live plan, to allocate those things as you see fit, whether it be the CARES Act funds or having the bigger picture, which I think the council may rather have, is a total understanding of the $1.1+ million and the CARES Act allocation, how they mirror together, and then you can make a decision after you actually pass the budget.
So, Mayor, thank you, Mr. Donald. Mayor, my consensus would be to do what Mr. Donald recommended. I'm not in favor of reallocating anything. I would prefer for us to follow the state law, pass a balanced budget. When we get all the funding in, then we reallocate.
Ms. Rao, are you, yeah, you had the floor. I was asking, were you turning the floor with her or not? You still have the floor.
Yeah, she was asking for consensus from us. That's my consensus.
Well, I said consensus is a yes or no. Ms. Rao, you still have the floor. We're going to end this.
Yeah, I'm just asking, if we take the recommendations as presented on page 1, which I'm okay with that, since Mr. Donald has indicated that he's going to bring us back things that are likely to be eligible, so that whenever this money becomes available, we're ready to go. I'm okay with that. And that gets us, to the point where we can have a budget with all the numbers in it and it's balanced at our next meeting. So I support the recommendations as outlined on first page of this memorandum.
She's asking for consensus, not a consensus vote. Am I correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Just get the pulse of the council.
Madam Clerk, let's see if there's consensus. Not a vote, but a consensus.
Okay, Councilmember Baker. Councilmember Baker. Councilmember Khalid.
Yes, that's what I asked for about 40 minutes ago.
Really?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Councilmember Reeves.
Could you restate the question, please? Aye.
Councilmember Rao is asking for consensus on doing priorities 1 that's on page 1. Is that correct, Councilmember Rao?
Yes, that is correct. That's how we balance the budget, by taking the staff's recommendation as outlined on page 1.
Aye.
Gilliard, Councilmember Gilliard. Councilmember Gilliard. Councilmember Willis.
Wait a minute, I'm sorry. No, the $60,000 for Hall Road should have been in the original budget because it is every year. That's a serious issue.
All right.
Councilmember Willis.
Yes.
Councilmember Gons.
Yes.
Councilmember Rao.
Yes.
Okay, the consensus is
Okay, Miss Councilwoman Rao, you have 53 seconds.
Oh, yeah. We got consensus, but I do think for something that's ongoing maintenance, we should have. I do support Councilwoman Gilliard's on the Hall Road maintenance, and also think street lights. So, maybe we could look at, we keep talking about lighting up the city. People want lights. That's an infrastructure investment that's citywide. Maybe we could do the contingency at 200,000.
Okay. All right. Ms. Rao being the last speaker, let me just say one thing before we adjourn, and a couple of things rather. One, it has to do with, I said this many times, that there were people in South Fulton who don't want their road paved. I said that on a number of occasions. And Hall Road and Jones Road has been those people who have not wanted their roads paved. I support Ms. Gilliard, whatever decision we make to maintain the rural living style of Hall Road. Now, one thing I would like, Mr. Manager, and maybe you and Mr. Valenzuela, are you there?
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
I want you to give me a report on the environmental impact of calcium chloride, okay, as it pertains to a basement of roads, because I see where that's about to go. Okay. All right. And the other thing is, I think we've done a great job. All of us. I think our staff has done a great job. But we're going to have to once again be able to, if we're going to say you're going to have $100,000 worth of money put to the side, it's kind of hard to do that when you don't know what that impact is. And I think that's what Ms. Gilliard was trying to say about the $100,000 or $200,000. It was put in there, but what was the impact? And thank you, Mr. Malazi, for making us plain that if we're undecided, just put it in contingency, and then just decide it later. So, having said all this, I would take a motion to adjourn. Mr. Don, you want to say something?
Well, I just wanted to make sure we're clear. So, based on the consensus of the council, because I think the formal time frame for budget adoption, we don't want to leave that out. The formal time frame, and Mr. Malazi would have it in his head, but I believe we would now potentially pass the budget on September 25th. And as such, we would take the consensus of the council and formulate that budget on behalf of the council for your review and potential adoption on the 25th. And so is that the correct understanding that I have received from the body?
Yeah.
That's what I'm assuming.
And so,
Mayor, I have a question.
Mr. Donald, is the budget calendar not scheduled for the 22nd adoption?
It may be, and I'm sorry, I'm probably misquoting it. That's why I defer.
It's 22nd.
Okay. And so for the council, we would work with the city attorney, because of course that's an ordinance. So we would have the budget ordinance. Mr. Malazi would update the numbers. Staff is always prepared to do that. And so since today is Tuesday the 15th, what we would do, I think we have to have it submitted to you tomorrow. And so I'll try to work with Mr. Malazi today to just get you those draft numbers today, so you have the longest amount of time possible to see it, even before the actual packet is done on Friday. And so we'll try to get that done today. The ordinance is likely not to be ready. I think there is a draft actually, but we'll definitely have some pre-information for you no later than tomorrow. Let's call it 11 a.m., but we will fight to get that done today so that everybody gets plenty of time to look at it, but it'll be based on your consensus today. That's all.
I have a question, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, I have a question. Hello?
I think he might be muted, council member. If you give him a second, I think.
Madam Pro Tem.
Oh.
Madam Pro Tem.
Yes, Mayor, I'm here.
Okay.
I apologize.
Pick up at this point. I have another important meeting that I have to attend. So would you
Okay.
take up? All right.
I have a question, Madam Pro Tem.
Yes, ma'am.
So, and this is to Councilwoman Rao. So, are you adding to your former consensus streetlights and the treatment of Hall Road?
Point of order. Point of order, Pro Tem, Madam Pro Tem.
Yes, Councilwoman Willis.
We've already taken consensus on what we want to take consensus on. Councilmember Rao did not ask us to add anything. We've already taken consensus and given Mr. Donald our direction.
Understood.
Point of order.
She's
I
seeking,
asked
Councilwoman Gilliard, one second. She's seeking clarity. So Councilwoman Rao, can you please just answer her question so we can move forward? Okay, so at this time, Councilwoman Rao is unable to answer your question. So Mr. Donald.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was talking and didn't realize I was on mute. That is correct. The clerk had already polled the entire council at the time. And so we had already gotten consensus, but I was imploring my colleagues to consider, again, streetlights and that one issue relative to Hall Road, which would bring the contingency from 200 to 200,000. And then you would earmark 100,000 between the streetlights and the treatments for Hall.
All right. So thank you for that. Mr. Donald, did you have anything else you wanted to add?
No, ma'am. I think we're clear. I appreciate the guidance and the insight. So we will be 100% prepared to deliver to the council.
Madam Pro Tem.
So I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move that we adjourn.
Mayor Pro Tem, before we rush and do that, Councilwoman
We got a
Rao
second, Madam Pro Tem.
added that on. We're both talking. I'm talking right now. Mayor Pro Tem, so she asked that that be added on. Can we get consensus on that?
So we've already done the poll and there's a motion on the floor to adjourn and it's already been seconded, Councilwoman Gilliard.
This always happens. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, Madam Clerk.
Councilmember Rao. Well, it was motioned by Councilmember Willis, second by Councilmember Reeves that we adjourn 11:58 a.m. Councilmember Rao.
Nay.
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 Councilmember Gomes.
Nay.
Councilmember Willis.
Yes.
Councilmember Reeves.
Aye.
Councilmember Khalid.
You're on mute.
Sorry, nay.
Councilmember Gilliard. Councilmember Gilliard. Councilmember Baker.
Nay.
Motion fails.
So
Is Councilwoman Gilliard still on the line?
So I would like to make a motion to see if we can get a consensus vote on the recommendations on page 1, with the exception that we reduce the contingency to 200,000, put 50,000 for Hall Road and 50,000 for streetlights.
Did you not already do?
No, we didn't. That was the point. She had.
Got it. Okay.
I second.
Sorry.
So
it's been moved and second.
Who was the seconder?
I am.
Councilman Cleed.
I do have discussion though.
All right, discussion.
So the contingency in this year's budget will now be $200,000.
It'll be 700,000.
$700,000.
No, it would actually be, your contingency would be a little over $2 million. And although you have some items earmarked, it would remain at 2 million. And I think we've discussed some of that out of this area. And I apologize, Madam Mayor Pro Tem, I hopped in and I apologize for that. So I'll wait until call.
Please proceed. Go ahead.
Yeah, so it would be approximately $2 million, a little over that. And you do have some things earmarked in there, but your contingency is your contingency, and it is available for whatever use that you deem at the time. And then remember, while you are privy to some additional information about those potential CARES Act funding, we're going to provide you insight into how those items should be utilized. And so before you talk about how it can be reduced or what it goes to and all of those things, I would just humbly ask that you give us an opportunity to present that, because I believe our contingency will stay largely intact.
And so what is our contingency minus the amount of items that is earmarked?
You don't have.
Didn't y'all say it was 500,000 earlier in this meeting? I thought.
Yeah, it's a little more than that. It's approximately 700,000, but you won't have to. Yeah. Again, I think that gives misinterpretation, and I'm just trying to. A lot of things get misinterpreted in the public, and we don't want to do that. And so I would humbly request that you not talk about earmarked things, because they're earmarked, but you have not agreed to spend them on that, and you will likely not have to agree to spend them on that.
So I have a few minutes left on the clock. I really want to address this issue about misinterpretation and false narratives, blase. Like that's why we share screens. That's why we publish documents. People can pull up a budget, they can pull out a calculator, and they can add things up. And sometimes things just don't add up. One of the problems that we had in last year's budget is that we had this URA pot. And everybody thought that their project would get funded in the URA pot. And we kept throwing items in the URA pot, and we ended up with more projects than we had money. I feel like that same thing is happening with the CARES Act, that people are like, oh, that's going to get covered by the CARES Act. We don't even know how much money we're going to get to even say how many things we're going to be able to do. And so I just want to make sure that things are adding up.
Mayor Pro Tem, may I provide a response, please?
Yes.
So I would vehemently disagree with you on the URA and those items not adding up and people expecting this, that, and the other. I think from the staff perspective, we've been very clear. You have $17 million less debt service allocated to the URA. And so there are a list of projects, and it has not been determined whether all of the projects will actually be able to be funded or not, the same way that the T-Splosh projects work. The first thing that you do is identify the list of projects that you would like. And then secondly, you have to go through the process to bring those items online. Hall Road was a great example of that today, in that initially $100,000 was allocated, but to date, there has not been a completion of the action to bring those projects forward. Because the first thing, and many times you have to do a design or something of that nature to set the cost of the projects. Currently, we've done an assessment of the URA. So we've assessed all of the infrastructure needs, and all of those projects actually fit with needs to the city. The next piece is to actually cost and develop a project timeline. That is actually in process. Based on the cost of services and those needs, it is actually highly likely that all of the activities will be able to be funded. I think in the council's wisdom, some of the things, whether it be economic development projects or other things that you've done, have actually lowered the burden on the URA. And so once the project timeline and the cost assessment is done, then you will be able to say that all of the projects can't be funded, or they can, or there may be excess money, which is what we believe will occur as staff members. And so again, it's not a shot at anybody, and I don't operate like that to take shots at my elected officials or anything of that nature. But there has to be some clarity in that the process is not complete. So to have people thinking that the URA is not adequately funded after you as a collective unit, made great strides to make sure that the city's infrastructure and these projects are brought online to the city comes forward is very important. And so I would just say we haven't completed that project. So I would just ask that you give it time to bring forward. And that's what I'm saying about the contingency. The CARES Act is not a cure-all. It is a one-time fee. A one-time source of revenue, but it does provide us an opportunity to reduce the liability on the city's general fund. And so I just caution us when that is hanging in the background to make decisions or speak about it in a way that's finite when it is not, and some of those things are in flux.
And I just want to respond to your response that I am not saying that the URA is not adequately funded. What I am saying is that because we don't know the cost of all of the projects, we cannot say whether or not we can do them all. And that there are definitely projects on the original list that are not on the current.
Madam Pro Tem, point of order.
Can we, ladies and gentlemen, can we just please try to make it through? Yes, Councilmember Willis.
Why are we talking about the URA? Why are we talking about the URA? This is not germane to the discussion. We are talking about the fiscal 20 budget.
Okay. Please, can we please continue?
And we had a consensus vote.
I was in discussion. I'm in discussion and I went in the queue.
Madam Clerk, can you tell me who's in the queue next?
Councilmember Rao, Councilmember Willis, and Councilmember Gilliard.
Okay, so in that order, Councilwoman Rao.
Well, I want to call for the previous question for the poll with the recommended change.
Second.
Okay, so it's been moved that we go to the previous question. Madam Clerk, in second.
Councilmember Rao.
Yes.
Councilmember Gomes.
Yes.
Councilmember Willis.
No.
Councilmember Gilliard.
Yes.
Councilmember Reeves. Councilmember Reeves.
Nay.
Councilmember Khalid. Councilmember Khalid.
Sorry, yes.
Councilmember Baker.
Aye.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
We didn't vote on consensus.
The consensus
Yes, we
was.
did.
We had consensus.
We voted on a previous question. So
Okay.
the consensus vote?
Yep. So yes for me.
Okay, so the consensus question was to accept the priorities. 1, reducing the contingency 200,000, with 50,000 for Howell Road and 50,000 for street
lights.
Street lights. Okay, Councilmember Baker.
Aye.
Councilmember Khalid. Councilmember Khalid.
Yes.
Councilmember Reeves.
Aye.
Councilmember Gilliard.
Yes.
Councilmember Willis.
No, I feel we should go with the city manager's recommendation until we get the CARES Act. So I'm going to say no. I support the city manager.
Councilmember Gomes.
Yes.
Councilmember Rao.
Yes,
The
I
consent.
make a motion to adjourn.
I
Second.
I didn't get a chance to
Second.
speak. I didn't get a
Second.
chance to speak.
Wait. Didn't
So-
we just adjourn the meeting?
We are currently in,
The queue.
we have a motion on the floor to adjourn in a second. So,
That's what
Madam
we just
Clerk?
voted on, right? So-
No, sir. You voted on the consensus.
Madam Clerk, please proceed.
Okay, motion by Councilmember Rao, second by Councilmember Khalid to adjourn the meeting. Councilmember Rao.
Point of order. Point of
Yes.
order. Point of order, Madam Pro Tem.
Yes, Councilman Baker.
Yes, ma'am. We should be in discussion at this point.
Right.
We are, what, no, we actually finished, we did the vote for the census and then we had a meeting to adjourn.
Right. And there was a motion and a second. After that, there's discussion.
For adjournment?
Adjournment?
Yeah. For any motion.
That's
Can we
correct.
proceed?
It's my understanding as well.
Let's
Just
have
wanted to clarify.
discussion.
I don't have discussion, but
Let's
I
have
heard
discussion.
one of my colleagues trying to get in. And
Councilwoman
the
Gilliard,
point
please.
of order is discussion.
Thank you. Councilwoman Gilliard, please. Proceed.
I just want to say that so that the entire community will know when we vote on the budget that we are voting on whatever is in the URA budget for that year. So it was germane to the conversation that Councilman Khalid was trying to have about the URA. And so I know that we are not discussing it any further because we're at the end of this meeting, but it will come back on the 22nd because it's part of the budget.
Thank you for your comments. All right, are we able to proceed with the vote? Madam Clerk?
Okay, you ready to vote? Councilmember Rao.
Yes.
And we're voting on to adjourn. Councilmember Gomes.
Yes.
Councilmember Willis.
Yes.
Councilmember Gilliard.
Yes.
Councilmember Reeves.
Aye.
Councilmember Khalid.
Yes.
Councilmember Baker.
Aye, and good afternoon.
Meeting adjourned 12:13 p.m.
Thank you. Everyone have a great day.
Thank you. You too.
Forever.